everyone, and welcome to 3 reasons that developers and builders should consider modular construction. My name is Mary Tingerthal, and I'm with a group called Construction Revolution. We're a group of individuals in the upper Midwest that thought it was important to bring commercial modular construction to the residential sector in Minnesota and the upper Midwest. With me today is the founder and CEO of Rise Modular, located in Minnesota, and the first fully commercial modular construction company in Minnesota. And we will be talking about the experiences that Rise has had in working with builders and developers on commercial modular construction. Hello, Christian. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mary.
I'm going to start with a question, Christian. I know that you started your career as a developer. How and why did you ever decide that you were going to start a modular construction company?
Great question, Mary. I wouldn't have imagined I'd be in this business, but 5 years ago, I got into real estate and development, particularly multifamily. And I quickly realized that construction costs were outpacing rent and wages. And this presented a challenge for the industry and for society as a whole. As we know, we have an affordable housing crisis locally, regionally, and nationally. And big believer that technology can move the needle on construction costs. And so at first I wanted to simply build a project with offsite construction and volumetric modular specifically, but learned that there was no supplier that could do a 5+ story modular multifamily project in the upper Midwest, and learned that there were only 4 or 5 focused on this segment in the whole country, and none close enough to the Twin Cities to make economic sense. And so I continued doing research and touring factories across the country and decided to launch my own platform here in 2018. And we opened our doors last year. And so we're really excited to be the first fully commercial modular platform in the upper Midwest.
Kristen, as you talk with developers and as you're making decisions as a developer yourself, what's the number one reason that you hear that people want to consider modular for their projects?
Great question. There are several reasons, speed being probably the most profound benefit through accelerated construction schedules. And as conventional construction continues to take longer and longer with labor shortages and other factors, modular construction offers a huge benefit in terms of saving time up to 30 to 50% faster than traditional stick-built construction.
For those that aren't as familiar with modular, why is it that modular is faster? It's still building a building, so why can you get these increases in your savings in time?
Sure. So there are really 2 reasons why it is significantly faster. One, the most simple, is that there's concurrent construction. So while we are breaking ground on the site and doing footings and foundations, utilities, building the podium, parking structure, we are simultaneously building the modular units in the factory. And so rather than sequential construction in stick-built, we are doing the mods at the same time as the site is getting ready for the mods. And once the podium is ready, we start stacking mods. So that is the most simple reason. And the other factor is our productivity in a climate-controlled, state-of-the-art factory. We just have more labor efficiency and productivity in the plant due to the plant layout and the ergonomic workstations, and really an assembly line where you're not hiking up to the 5th story and getting materials up there to do whatever task. Our construction team is going to the same station on the assembly line every day. Their materials are right there, and so it's a much more efficient and productive labor utilization.
Well, thanks for explaining that. I remember when I first started learning about commercial modular construction, one of the things I learned about was that the Marriott company, Marriott International, had made a corporate decision to encourage those that were building and developing Marriott properties to consider the use of modular. Can you tell me a little bit about that, and why would a company as big as Marriott make a decision like that?
Great question. Marriott's been a great champion for commercial modular and was really one of the first national companies to really focus, and several other companies have followed behind them. There's several factors, and I don't want to speak for them, but they've looked across their portfolio of brands and saw that a significant number of them can be built modular without really much, if any, changes. And if you think about it, hotels lend itself quite well to modular in terms of 2 hotel rooms fitting in 1 mod, and so it's very straightforward. And I think they like the time savings. Getting heads and beds faster has significant economic benefits, as well as the consistent quality across the portfolio.
Christian, I'd like to next talk about cost savings. It seems like everyone that talks to me about modular construction says, oh, it's going to save a lot of money, right? And I think a lot of that was prompted back in 2019 by the McKinsey study that many in the modular business are familiar with. Now that you've completed the modules for a couple of projects and you've got more in the pipeline, what do you think about cost? Is the cost savings really there for modular?
Great question, Mary. Cost savings is definitely an important factor, but not the only reason to go modular. And it really depends on the project and the location. In different markets and different projects, there may be more or less cost savings. We have found in the Twin Cities, in the upper Midwest, that we can realize 5 to 10% cost savings on construction hard costs if the project is optimized for modular. But in addition to cost savings, an important factor is cost certainty, especially with construction durations for traditional stick-built increasing and supply chain volatility. Many developers tell me they've been hit with many change orders on their projects. And modular, due to the upfront design and concurrent construction and shorter duration, there's much less risk of cost overruns. And so cost certainty is almost as important as the cost savings in modular. And I see cost savings increasing over time as more industry stakeholders, from architects to engineers, designers, vendors, get more familiar with modular. We'll be able to recognize more efficiencies and reduce our cost, while traditional stick-built, I expect, will continue to creep upwards.
Christian, are there particular types of projects that might lend themselves to accomplishing greater cost savings or lower cost savings? What are the factors in a particular design that might drive cost savings?
Great question, Mary. It's really several things. First of all, the sooner we get involved in a project, the more efficient we can help drive design to our system. Many of our projects were originally designed for stick built, and then we modularized them. There's still potential for cost savings there, but even greater cost savings when we're engaged early in a project and we can help guide the design to take advantage of the efficiencies of our system. A few factors that lend themselves to an efficient modular design is one, larger scale projects. We're a manufacturing business at its core, and so the larger production runs lead to greater efficiencies and economies of scale. And then similar to stick, projects with units that stack. Our system does not lend itself to switching floor plans, based on second to fifth story. So units that stack. And then on the other end of the spectrum, projects that have a very uniform design. We're doing a project next year with the MPHA, Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, which is 4 and 6 plexes, but it's on 16 different sites. And we essentially have a left, a middle, and a right box, and they're either stacked 2 or 3 tall. And so while it's a small building, 4 or 6 units, which translates to 6 or 9 modules, they're the same. And so it's 126 boxes for a single production run. And so that can be quite efficient for modular as well.
And I know that those are larger units as well, so they do make for fairly large boxes. We've been talking for the last few minutes a lot about design, and I'll say that I've faced my share of skeptics among architects and developers when I talk about modular. They say, well, modular, if I try to go modular, I'm just going to have an ugly building that's rectangular in shape, and I don't want to do that. I want my building to really make a statement. Is that true, or can you argue that you can still accomplish great design with modular construction?
Sure. So I got into this business as a developer, and so this is a very important point to me. If you can save time and money, but you're sacrificing design, it's not worth it. And so we set out as a company to really offer design flexibility to developers so that they were capturing the benefits, without sacrificing design intent or net rentable square footage. And I think our projects that are complete in process in the pipeline speak for themselves in terms of design flexibility. It has been an education process for architects and engineers to understand that flexibility, but I think when we show them our projects, they really understand, and when we challenge them to modularize a design or take a site and do a fit plan, they've surprised themselves that they can really achieve their design intent, their building footprint, unit mix, unit sizes, within the parameters of modular. And a few of our projects, really show the flexibility in terms of building shape and size, unit mix and unit size and layout. We've got our St. Michael project, which is an L-shaped project that has everything from studio to 3-bedroom units. And then we've got the Alvera, which just finished stacking a couple months ago, which is predominantly a rectangular building, but on the east end of the building, we've got a triangular end cap, which the developer thought was important to maximize the tight urban infill site. And so we actually have non-rectangular boxes in that project, as well as a roof amenity deck. And so that project really goes to show that there's flexibility even in terms of the box shape, not just the project. And then we've got our Glenwood project, which is also a L-shaped building, but it is not a 90-degree turn. And so that creates a stack of non-rectangular boxes. That project is studios to 2 bedrooms. And then our Pentagon Park project is a 200 unit project, U-shape, 5/1 project with an amenity deck. And again, every unit from studios to 2 bedrooms. And so these several projects really show the flexibility of both the building shape and size, as well as the unit mix.
Do you think in the future that people will be able to go down the street and say, oh, well, that's clearly a modular building? Or are there things you can do with the exterior design that will make it stand out as a great development and not call attention to itself as modular?
A great question. We're building in the factory up to the weather barrier. And so we have the same flexibility of exterior materials as a conventional stick-built project. And if you look at the renderings or completed pictures of our projects, you'd be hard pressed to know that they were modular. In fact, in a recent planning commission meeting, we were told that our building doesn't express the modularity enough. And you can't tell that it's modular. On the exterior and interior, once they're built, you'd really have no idea that they were modular. It's during construction, the speed and the boxes coming in like Legos, where you can really see the process.
Christian, I know your first 2 projects have been on really tight urban infill sites. Was that a factor in why those 2 projects selected modular? And what are some of the factors that'll tip the scale towards modular for sites like this? Is it the neighbors? Is it the planning commission? Is it the developer? Is it cost? What's in that equation for urban infill sites in particular?
Great question, and that's definitely right. The first 2 projects, Mod 42 and Alvera, particularly Alvera, were extremely tight, urban, downtown sites, and modular, definitely helps in those situations. In addition to the cost and time savings, quality consistency, our construction methodology lends itself quite well to urban infill sites where you may not have adequate storage for staging different materials. And because our modules are coming in one by one and then being craned into place, we don't need nearly as much staging material for bunks of lumber and panels or whatever might be using staging area in a conventional project. And so that is definitely a factor. And also, helps with, gaining support from, the neighborhood and other stakeholders, because it's not only is it a condensed construction schedule, and so you're dealing with construction for a shorter duration, it's also fewer truck trips and therefore traffic and fewer workers on site, so less parking being taken up by construction and congestion. And the other factor that's really important is the sustainability. With modular, we're reducing construction waste considerably, both in the plant and on site, and with reduced truck trips and construction workers on site, we're reducing emissions, and so there's a lot of benefits to the neighborhood stakeholders in the project. And one of our projects, the first one, Mod 42, we actually won support from the neighbors for that exact reason. Been helpful in terms of getting support for the project, whether it's from the neighborhood or a planning commission. We found it to be a benefit to the entitlement process.
Christian, there'll be some people watching this that really aren't familiar with a set event. on a site. How many of these modules can you set in one day? What's the range? And so for let's say a 100 unit building, how many days are you actually going to take before that building has risen from the foundation all the way up to completion?
Sure. So simple answer is about 10. In some cases, we can stack a couple more. In some cases, less. It depends on where the project site is and the logistics and the hours in which we're allowed to transport and crane. But roughly 10. And so if it were a 100-unit building that comprised of 100 modular units, we could do that in 10 days or 2 weeks, assuming we're working 5-day weeks and not 6. So it is really fast from going from podium to a completely erected structure.
And it sounds like that means that the workers who are working on site are pretty much in a closed-in building from the very beginning when the modulars start to be developed.
Yeah, absolutely. During setting, obviously, those doing the structural connections, and seaming the weather barrier are outside, but it's a very quick period of time. And then all the trades coming in to do the MEP connections and work inside the building are within a weather-tight building.
Christian, I'm aware that you launched Rise Modular in 2019, just before COVID, and you actually opened your factory just 2 months into the lockdown period in early 2020. What's been the impact of the pandemic on modular construction and on construction in general? And have the impacts been the same or different? How have you felt being a modular factory owner during a pandemic?
Sure. So it's certainly been a challenging year for everyone, but we've fared quite well. It certainly impacted the way we operate and the protocols we put in place to protect our workforce. And labor has been tight in construction and in other industries before the pandemic, and that was only exacerbated during the pandemic. And so that has certainly been a challenge, although I think we've fared better because we offer a really desirable workplace, both in terms of our benefit and compensation package, but also going to the same workplace every day instead of driving in some cases an hour plus to work in the trades. And it's not only the same workplace, but it's climate controlled. We can wear t-shirts in the plant year round and work in ergonomically optimized workstations on the ground floor. And so I think that's helped us attract and retain talent. Supply chain has also been impacted, as we all know and read about regularly. And so that's certainly been a challenge, but I think we've fared quite well because we can store a lot of materials in our factory. We're procuring early and upfront, and so we have more certainty in terms of both cost and delivery schedules for supply chain, and we lock in those prices. And so while it's certainly been challenging, I think we've fared quite a bit better than conventional stick-built in terms of impact from the pandemic.
Well, Christian, you've been in the modular business for a couple of years now, and I think it's easy to say it could be easy to be discouraged about the modular business. We've had a couple of high-profile exits from the industry in the last year, material shortages, labor shortages. What do you see not only for Rise Modular, but for the commercial modular industry in the next 3 to 5 years? Are we headed for a bright future, or are things going to continue to slog along?
Great question, and I'm obviously biased, but I believe there's a very bright future ahead for modular, not only in the near term in terms of a couple years, but also long term. Part of the reason I got into this business is macroeconomic trends. Labor availability is continuing to decrease in construction and other industries, and we have to innovate. Construction costs continue to go up, labor continues to go down, and so we need to find new ways to build. So fundamentally, from a macroeconomic standpoint, it has to change. In offsite construction and volumetric modular specifically, it has a very bright future and is going to make up a much larger percentage of construction going forward. I do think there's certainly been some high profile cases of companies not succeeding in the space, and while that may be discouraging to some, I think there's lessons to be learned, and we at Rise are staying very focused on what we do, which is multifamily and hospitality. There are many businesses that try to do a lot of different things, whether it's oil and gas, man camp type product, single family homes, ADUs, hospital and classroom, structures, temporary buildings. We are focused exclusively on multifamily and hospitality projects, and I think that focus is important to really build that capability and be good at what we're doing before we were to tackle more segments. And so I'm very bullish and optimistic for the outlook of both what we're doing and offsite construction and volumetric modular.
Are there one or two things, Christian, that you think the industry needs to do and focus on to have that bright future be ahead of us?
Yeah, good question. I think that, as I mentioned, I think focus, it's very difficult to, be good at a lot of different products while it's still construction, building single family homes and ADUs, in oil and gas man camps, classrooms, is fundamentally different than building, multifamily and hospitality buildings. So I think you're going to see, businesses increasingly focus on one area, and I think you're going to see consolidation in the industry.
Well, thank you, Christian. And I want to thank everyone who joined us today. We hope that we brought you some insights into why developers and builders might want to take a harder look at commercial modular construction as you move forward to figure out how you get projects done efficiently, cost effectively in years to come. So thank you.